You could say I live in the middle of nowhere. I prefer to call it the middle of the wilderness though, and after living alone out here long enough, I thought I would become familiar with the land out here, and even get comfortable. But I never have gotten comfortable. Maybe used to this place, but never comfortable. Pretty sure I can hold my own out here for the time being, but even so, lots of weird shit happens out here. Glad to finally have a way to tell strangers who probably won't judge or call me crazy though. Back to the topic at hand, weird stuff. I'll start with the first odd experience I had here. When I first purchased this land, I was really excited. There was already a house on the property that was the perfect size for me. Not only that, but it seemed pretty new. Like the former owners didn't stay around very long. Yeah, red flags, but how was I supposed to know how messed up this place was? Anyway, I move in without any issues, and within a week I'm out on some of the trails that were already there, looking for deer tracks and other game trails. I'm actually having a pretty relaxing time until I swear I hear a baby say mama, in the most stereotypical voice I've ever heard off in the distance. Now, like I said, I'm here in the middle of nowhere, so there shouldn't be anyone for miles. I just shook it off as me hearing things. 20 minutes later, I hear the same voice say mama again. Only this time it's 40 yards away, on the other side of some trees and brush. It didn't even sound like a real baby, it just sounded like some disturbed dude. Of course, at this point, he is definitely on my property as well. I start making my way through the undergrowth, and then when I'm sure I'm about to hit where he was, the brush clears out to a clearing and I finally get a glimpse of the man. He was butt naked and halfway behind a tree, flaunting a huge smile while his eyes stayed kinda squinty. He was also pretty skinny as I could see his ribs. Now usually you hear people say that at this moment my blood ran cold, but honestly, mine didn't. I was looking at some butt-naked crackhead trespassing on my property. He decided to let out another mama during silence when I was trying to figure out what was my next move. So I promptly responded with a hearty, "What the actual fuck are you doing?" That's when he decided my next move for me. He started running at me, and I might have run away if he hadn't been so scrawny. So when he reached me with that big smile and looked like he was about to grab me, I punched him in the throat. It was a good punch. I was proud of it, honestly. It would have kept any normal man on the ground for at least a minute. This is when I got the first hint that this wasn't a normal man. While I was standing there proud of my Mike Tyson level haymaker, the guy immediately got back to his feet, and before I had time to hit him again, he dive tackled me to the ground, and it hurt pretty bad. He somehow pinned my shoulders to the ground, and no matter how hard I kicked and punched him, he wouldn't let up. So I was forced to use plan B. I pulled out my trusty Bear Grylls survival knife and stabbed him in the gut twice. This finally got his attention, and he hopped back to his feet, slinging blood all over me in the process. I got back to my feet, knife in hand, and waited for him to do something else. All he did though was stick a finger in his wound, then lick the blood off, then cartwheel into the woods, crying like an actual newborn baby this time. Now by this point I was pretty on edge, and right as he got far enough away that I could no longer hear him, I turned and walked home. I know I should have run, but running through the woods is so tiring and I just didn't feel like it. When I got home, all was normal again for a while. Another story that comes to mind when I think about odd things happening around the area is the event that led to me no longer camping in my woods. By the time the events in this story took place, I had already experienced quite a few things on this property, and this was easily the third freakiest thing to happen up to that point, right behind the naked stab victim that cried like a newborn baby and cartwheeled out into the woods. This time I had decided that I wanted to go camping. Despite all the stuff that had happened, I had never been seriously injured in those woods, so why not go sleep in them? Bad choice, I know. Anyway, the first few hours I got into the woods went fine. I set up camp, built a fire, and burned myself trying to cook a hot dog. Piss on fire that burned me. Then I started to realize camping is pretty boring when you're all alone, so I decided to go to sleep. Next thing I know, I wake up to the sound of a young girl's voice down in the creek. Sounds like she's a college type age. She's saying, "Help, I need some help down here, I'm lost. Dad, help." And I can hear her down in the creek from my tent. Now, this isn't the first time I've been lured into the woods by a voice pleading for help, but this voice was a lot more convincing than the others. Nonetheless, I still brought my newly purchased 45 caliber handgun that I had bought for dealing with the things on this land. I made my way into the creek, flashlight in hand, and headed down to the voice. Soon I find the source. Now, I didn't put the flashlight beam on her right away because I didn't want to blind her, but I could clearly see the outline of a small girl sitting on the bank of the creek. I got about 15 feet away and she stopped me, stating that you really don't need that flashlight with the moon out like this. It wasn't even close to a full moon, so that confused me a little. I replied with, I don't know about you, but I can't see a thing out here. Let me help you though. Are you hurt? Then I started to shine the flashlight on her, but she screamed stop before I got to her face. This time, her voice wasn't as convincing. I could tell she wasn't human. Now, what you guys need to realize is that I'm not a badass, and I'm not trying to sound cool or tough, but ever since something happened 3 years ago, the same event that caused me to move out here, I don't respond to situations the same anymore. Maybe I'm not scared of death anymore. Maybe I'm mentally unstable. Maybe I'm weird. But when I established that this thing wasn't human, I started to smile. It fooled me, got me out here in the woods, in its domain, and was probably going to make an attempt on my life, but I might as well piss it off a little. So I flicked my flashlight up and revealed its face. It actually was a girl, sort of. She was super pale and had abnormally large eyes that were completely black. When the light hit her face, her head snapped forward and made eye contact with me, and her jaw dropped open 3 times larger than any human could. Then she screamed. It was loud, like inhuman loud. It sounded like a girl's scream, but as if it were being played through massive speakers to make it ear-splitting. Then I felt something closing around my neck. She hadn't moved, but was somehow choking me, still screaming. I have realized while living here that the entities that can hurt you can also get hurt themselves. Now, most of them are tough as nails, but they can be hurt. This memory went through my head just as I felt something warm dripping onto my neck, and my left ear went quiet. Busted eardrum. I aggressively threw my flashlight at the bitch, and it connected with what I assumed was her eye. I couldn't tell for sure because I didn't have a flashlight, and yes, I forgot to use the gun. It was new, and in the current life or death situation, I forgot I had it. Luckily, this girl wasn't one of the tough ones, and I felt the grip on my neck loosen and her scream stopped. No sooner had I taken my first breath when she bent over backwards possession style and sprinted into the woods in reverse. When I finally caught my breath, I slowly walked by to my campsite and went to sleep in the tent. You may be asking why I didn't go back home after that, but it was a 20-minute hike and my flashlight was broken, so I had to wait until morning. Slept pretty good though, no noises woke me up. I woke up then next morning expecting my ear to be killing me, but miraculously, it was completely back to normal. I later figured out that it was the lady in the tree who fixed my ear, but that's a story for another time. That morning, I just packed up everything and headed back home. Only thing that got messed up was my flashlight, so I wasn't even that disappointed in the trip. I still don't camp out there anymore because no matter how weirdly wired I am, that girl really did freak me out a good bit, and I'm sure she's still out there. What you will notice so far is that these entities aren't really very effective killers, but that doesn't go for everything out here. I can't tell you about the property without mentioning Skinny. Fuck Skinny. I understand that skinwalkers are a common topic on the horror scene at the moment, and from what I can tell, I think that's the creature I'm dealing with. But I could also be wrong, because if this is a skinwalker, it's advanced to another level. Not only does it imitate voice, it imitates appearance, and it really wants me dead or gone. I like to call it Skinny. I think it pisses him off though. And when I say his name, I say it loud, because especially at night, I know he's listening. I've lived here for 3 years now, and he's been harassing me for about a year, and he's good. One of the smartest things to come after me so far. The only one that can seem to almost get in my head. He tries to lure me out, not by pretending to be someone in trouble like other imitators that I've dealt with before. He's aware that stuff doesn't work on me anymore. No, he tries to piss me off. He wants me to try to kill him. The problem is we both know I probably can't. One time he got me though. I was watching a documentary about veteran suicide. It's a terrible topic. I'm a supporter of our armed forces, and I think it's terrible that our government doesn't take better care of the vets that risk everything overseas so we don't have to. They were doing a slideshow of men who had unfortunately lost a struggle with their own demons. I had to look away for a second because this one guy that appeared on the screen looked too young to and happy to have gone to this dark of a place. He was mixed race from what I can tell, athletic looking, and had a big dimple smile on his face. When I look away, suddenly I'm staring at the same kid outside my window. Same smile, same build, same uniform, one difference. Across his forehead was the word failure. I instantly knew it was Skinny. He wasn't trying to imitate this kid, he was insulting him, and he finally struck a nerve. I'd seen him imitate so many other people and try so many other tactics, but this was the one that finally broke me. I was ending this creature. I exploded out of my chair and bolted for my bedroom, grabbed my .45 caliber handgun, and proceeded to walk towards the same window the young soldier was still staring through. I got within 5 feet and saw that the word had changed. It now spelled out, I deserved it. After reading this, I didn't hesitate to raise my gun and fire 2 shots, but I think he ducked him. Bastard is fast. I stormed outside to try to find him, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen. That's when I hear, "Gotcha," whispered into my ear, and I was flung against the wall of my house. The gun flew out of my hand and in the process, broke 2 ribs and dislocated my right shoulder. I was a dead man and he knew it. Ever since the incident that led me to buy a house by myself out in the middle of the woods, I don't think I've ever felt fear again. Something is wrong with my head, but I did feel defeat. I fell for his trap, and now he's going to kill me. As these thoughts passed through my brain, I passed out from the pain, and the concussion probably. Then, for some reason that I still don't understand, I woke up. It was bright outside, and I was covered in blood and in more pain than I had ever been in my entire life. But I was alive. Why was I alive? I struggled to stand up with my right arm hanging loosely at my side, and I soon noticed the words carved into the outside wall of my house. Next time, fuck Skinny. Ever since I got back from the hospital, I told the doctor I fell off of a roof. I've been trying to find ways to deal with or kill a skinwalker. If there is a way, or if he's even a skinwalker, he beat me. I'm usually pretty lighthearted with most of my experiences no matter how intense they are. But I just can't with this one because if I lose to Skinny again, I guess I will be signing off for good. Be careful out there and don't be fooled like me. There isn't always a next time. But hey, not dead yet, so maybe there will be a next time. I plan on writing down more of my experiences in the future, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Until next time, Cole signing off. I'm happy to see that my experiences from part 1 got some attention. I wasn't expecting this stuff to actually get any traction. I'm mainly here to vent, and have a place to catalog the stuff that happens around my house. People also seem to enjoy the part where the naked dude attacked me, then cartwheeled into the woods crying like a baby when I stabbed him. Still not sure if he was human. Now, I feel obliged to tell more of my experiences. Also, feel free to leave any questions you have and I will try to answer them in the next post. That being said, if you haven't read part 1, I suggest you go back now and read it. I'm going to tell the following experiences as if you already know about the other experiences I have written about having on this property. This place is not normal after all and takes some getting used to. Now that the intro is out of the way, I think we could start with Camo, and Camo is a fucking nuisance. First time I came into contact with him was during the first whitetail deer season I had on my property. Now I'm a hunter, but the program that is helping me after the incident said I wasn't allowed to have guns because the noise draws too much attention. Bullshit. I live in the middle of nowhere and there isn't anybody else for miles, unless you count the chosen, but I'm pretty sure that the program is worried about them. Luckily, the lady in the tree hooked me up with a .45 caliber I now have in my possession. But I didn't have it upon first meeting Camo, unfortunately. Anyway, back to the story. I first saw him when I was walking towards a ladder stand I had set up on a tree to watch deer, since I could no longer kill them. And yes, I could have a bow, but I'm shit with a bow. I would risk hurting the animal. I don't like the idea of an animal that is suffering because I couldn't make a shot that would kill it instantly. Now as I approached my stand, I noticed a figure already sitting in it. It's about the size of a regular human. He was dressed in full camouflage, pants, jacket, boots, hat, face mask, and backpack. He actually seemed like a regular person, which I haven't seen any of those in the woods for the entirety of the 4 months I had been living there. The things that live on this property are generally more extreme, but no matter how relieved I was to see a proper human for once, he was deep in my property, and hunting in my stand. I had to get him to leave. I reluctantly shouted over to him, "Hey, you ain't supposed to be here. Time to go, dude." Now, I was about 75 yards away and to his left, but I yelled plenty loud for him to hear me clearly. He didn't flinch. He stayed facing straight forward like a statue. What a prick. Look, try to be creepy all you want, but ignoring someone like that is just rude. I know he hears me. I have reason to believe he was trying to freak me out because I've made him break character before. So after I yell and he ignores me, I start getting impatient. I yelled the same thing at him again a little louder and still ended up with the same response. What a dick. Now I'm livid because he's making me ruin all my chances of seeing deer this afternoon by making me yell at him. So naturally, I start a brisk stroll over to tell him off to his face, or maybe kick his ass. I already noticed he didn't have a rifle, so I just assumed he was watching like I was planning on doing. Of course, he could have had a concealed handgun, but I'm a dumbass, so I didn't consider that. Then I heard the crunch of something under my foot, and the sudden sound of rope sliding across the surface at a high speed. I froze for a fraction of a second, and before I could squeak out an "oh shit," I'm hanging upside down from my ankle. There was a loop around my leg that held me suspended 7 feet off the ground like a damn cartoon. I was like a fucking Looney Tunes character. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I immediately knew it was Camo, and when I look up, or down? Shit, I was upside down, so I don't really know where I had to look, but I saw him slowly climbing down the ladder. Like, really slowly. What a dramatic guy. If he wasn't so obsessed with appearances, he probably could have killed me. That's what I think he wanted to do anyways. There was a machete on his hip that I could now see, and the blade was chipped at in a way that made it look serrated. Wouldn't have been a very useful tool unless you wanted to use it to inflict pain. I think the biggest flaw with Camel's trap, though, was that he didn't account for the single fact that 99% of people who live alone in the woods learn that carrying a large knife at all times is a necessary thing if you want to stay alive. I wish I could tell you that I did a flip after I cut myself down and landed on my feet like some sort of badass, but I didn't. I landed on the back of my neck and my vision went dark for like 15 seconds, which I guess was enough time for a Tweedle dumbass to finally get to the bottom of my ladder stand. As I stood up, I saw that he was standing completely still at the base of the stand, still 50 yards away from me, staring at me. I could hear his thoughts from here. Damn, why did he get out? Shit, shit, shit. Then he turned and bolted. This dude was booking. I lost sight of him in less than 30 seconds into my chase and had to give up. I need to jog more. And what more, by the time I got back to the ladder stand, it was already getting dark. I didn't even get to watch any deer. I've seen Camo on multiple other occasions as well, but I figured him out. He got me the first time, but his traps really aren't that sneaky. They are elaborate, but not sneaky. He always appears in an area that I plan on hunting in. Don't know how he knows where I'm gonna be, but I stopped questioning stuff on this land a long time ago, and I always notice him long before I get to the location. Again, I have no idea how he plans this shit out. And secondly, there is always a trap set somewhere directly between when I first spot him and his actual location. Like, if I were to draw a line from him to where I see him from, the trap will always be on that line. Also, another important thing to realize is that none of his traps are fatal. They are all meant to keep me from escaping, but not kill me. They do hurt though. One time I almost stepped in a bear trap he had set out, and it for sure would have broken my leg had it got me. This non-fatal part was his downfall. I figured out that he didn't want me to die in a trap. He probably wanted to do the deed himself, or maybe do something else, but he really didn't want me dead in a trap. So all I had to do to get him riled up was die in a trap. right? After the lady in the tree hooked me up with a pistol a little over a year and a half ago, one of the first problems I wanted to solve with it was the creator of the various nets, ankle snares, and holes that attempted to contain me many times before, and I knew exactly how I was going to do it. One of Camo's recurring traps was just a large 11-foot deep hole covered by a large amount of suspiciously patterned sticks and leaves that could literally be seen 100 yards away. I just had to wait until he used his trap again. After a swinging log that I think was supposed to knock me out and another net that was meant to land on top of me, I might add that it was made of wire so I couldn't cut through it, but it also had a glare from the sunlight that made it impossible not to see. I finally came across the trap I was looking for. 4 weeks after I got the gun, I found myself walking towards an 11-foot hole, trying to pretend I don't see it. Suddenly, I start falling. I was ready for the fall and let out a loud yell as I traveled downward, and as I hit the ground I stayed quiet as possible, which was hard considering the broken toe and dislocated knee I had just received. Fuck Camo for making me do this. I army crawled over to the side of the hole and laid my head against the side to make it look like I had broken my neck. Then I waited. It took 15 minutes for that little prick to dramatically make his way over to me, but I heard him walk up to the edge of the hole. I obviously had to close my eyes to appear dead because I couldn't run the risk of blinking. But I almost smiled when I heard Camo mutter to himself, "Oh shit, no. They're going to be so fucking pissed." I took advantage of the moment and quickly opened my eyes and whipped out the pistol, firing 3 shots at him as quickly as I could. I missed with all but one. The bullet that met its mark put a hole in Camo's shoulder, and he let out a garbled scream of nonsense and gibberish, something along the lines of, "You piece of fucking, I can't fucking believe that ass, you fucking shit, ah." He did end up running away, but as he ran, I heard him say, "Fuck this dude, shit, I'm fucking done." I was laughing my ass off, till I realized I was severely injured and had to climb out of this hole. Good thing it was daytime though, or I might have not noticed the black rope that Camo had lowered into the hole while he was cursing himself for killing me. I somehow managed to pop my knee back and join based on shit I had seen earlier in life, and climbed out to limp my way back to my house. That was a good day. Broken toes are fucking expensive to get treated though. The best part is that I haven't seen Camo since that day. It actually worked. Wish I could pull something like that off with Skinny. Another thing that I guess I need to explain to all of you readers is the lady in the tree. I mentioned her a few times now, and at least some of you are probably wondering about her. I honestly don't know much about her myself, but she is hands down the best thing on this property. My first experience with her was when she healed a broken eardrum that I had suffered when meeting what I think was a banshee down in my creek. It was busted when she screeched really loud, and when I went to sleep, I woke up perfectly fine the next morning. I almost thought it was all a dream until I saw the blood still on my pillow and the broken flashlight that I had used in personal defense. Well, I guess this was the first time she affected me directly, but not the first time she had helped me out. The true first time I didn't realize it was her until last night. It was the gun. The gun that I talked about purchasing in part 1 wasn't really purchased. I just wasn't willing to admit that I looted it off an old corpse that I found in an abandoned log cabin in the back of the property. This is an example of how sneaky she is. I only started to wonder if it was her doing while I was recording the first set of these stories, and I started thinking about how good of shape this gun was in. Of course, it was a little dirty when I found it, but it was also in perfect operating condition, and I figured that the skeleton that was clutching it didn't need it anymore. But hell, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it came to life each night. Either way, I left the cabin with a new sidearm and 2 boxes of ammunition. I didn't really think about it too much because finding a gun on a body is mild considering the events that go down here on a week-to-week basis. But yesterday, I started questioning the real origins of this gun. It was so well maintained and new feeling when I got it, but the skeleton looked like it had been there forever. Not to mention the fact that the gun was unloaded and the boxes of ammo were unopened, but the skeleton looked like it had died holding the gun like he was intending to use it. It didn't add up, so I headed back to the cabin and I found my answer. Everything was the same when I got there as it had been over a year ago. I mean, nothing had changed, especially not the body. The exact same as before. I was nervous at first, not because the body scared me, but because the joke about the skeleton coming back to life from earlier wasn't really that far-fetched in this place. I've never seen an undead skeleton, but I have seen other forms of undead. Maybe I'll tell you all about those experiences sometime. Nervous or not, though, I had to confirm my suspicions. I approached the body and started examining the clothes. Just like I expected, the flannel shirt and brown jeans had no tags. Not like they had been ripped out, but like they were never there to begin with. Now, there was only one more thing to check. I took out my knife and scraped the blade down the skeleton's exposed arm bone. Sure enough, a shaving fell off. It was wood. The entire skeleton was made of wood and painted a lightish brown among other discolorations to look like the real deal. The lady in the tree is very talented when it comes to wood, but she can do so much more. I've only seen her in person 2 times, once when I caught a glimpse of her smiling as she walked into an opening, into a tree, only to close the opening with the door that fit so perfectly. I couldn't see the edges when I walked up to it. It just looked like a normal tree. And a second time 2 days after, I encountered the screeching banshee in the creek. I saw her out of the window of my front door, smiling in. She winked at me and ducked out of view. I ran to the door to try to see her fully, but by the time I swung the door open, she was gone in the night, nowhere to be seen, which is really annoying. I would almost consider us friends by now, and she still won't show herself to me fully. Now, when I saw her for the second time, I didn't know what or who she was, but when I looked at the ground in defeat, I noticed a small sheet of what looked like homemade paper. On it was a short message that read, "I wish to congratulate you on killing the Kilut. He was bringing an evil over the land that was distressing the forest. I don't know how you actually ended him, but I am happy all the same. I have seen you roaming and I am certain you have seen me. We work towards the same goal, cleansing this land. My vows as a medicine woman keep me from directly interfering with the creatures of this land, but I wish you luck on your mission and will support you from the shadows as best I can. I hope your ear feels better." So I think the Kilut she was talking about me killing, I think was a rabbit coyote that I had killed a few days before the creek incident. It was hairless and just stared at me through some trees. I think it was trying to intimidate me to leave its territory. So I shot it between the eyes and left. My territory, bitch. But this was the first time I realized that I finally had someone on my side on this land, and then that was a relief. She was actually really helpful. Once I got bit by a rattlesnake, and when I got home, there was a bottle labeled anti-venom sitting on my kitchen table. Another time, I got bit by one of the shadow children while I was hiking. And when I got home, there was a bottle of purple liquid in a glass vial in the same place on the table. I honestly expected it to heal the wound or something, but it just made me really drunk. Guess she couldn't help me much that time. She's done other stuff too, but now I'm kinda worried about her. I haven't heard or experienced any help from her in 8 months. I'm worried something got to her, or even worse. What if she is mad at me? I mean, Skinny almost killed me 6 months ago and she didn't do shit. I've grown to like her and even depend on her a bit, but she's just gone. I think I'll call it quits for this post, but hopefully I can stay alive long enough to post more. The hunt for Skinny continues, and if you don't know who that is, shame on you for not reading the first post before now. And if you do know who that is, I appreciate any suggestions you have for killing him. See y'all next time. Cole, signing off. Hey guys, I'm back. I know it's been a few days since my last post. One of the pals chewed through the wires of my generator, and since civilians aren't allowed out here by the organization, I had to wait 3 days for one of their electricians to get out here. The only reason I knew it was a pail that chewed through the main cable was because I watched it do it. I was hoping it would electrocute itself, but I forgot the part where that's my only source of power for my house since the Chosen had stolen my backup. This is probably a good time to say that if you haven't read the first 2 installments of this series, you should, because I highly doubt any of this will make any sense. They aren't long, and I will link them at the bottom of this post. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. I realized while I was stuck in the dark for the past 3 days, reading hiking books out of pure boredom, that I hadn't told y'all about the pails yet. They suck, but they are kind of funny once you figure them out. I've seen them on quite a few occasions on the property. The pals are white humanoids that crawl into the ground on all fours, usually dragging their belly and using the same motion that Spider-Man uses to climb walls. They can move at about a jogging pace, and their faces are usually stuck in distorted expressions of pain or anger. And boy, are they stupid as hell. Let me tell you about the first time I saw one. I had already been living here about 7 months, and I think I was becoming familiar with the weird shit that calls this place home. I was hiking out some of my trails, kinda halfway looking for weird shit, halfway minding my own business, and suddenly I can hear what sounds like a baseball player sliding through the leaves of the forest floor trying to reach home plate ahead of me. Only the sliding didn't stop, and it was coming straight towards me. I prepare myself by taking out my trusty Bear Grylls survival knife and entering what I could describe as an aggressive stance. Felt pretty badass, not gonna lie. Expecting some creature to come barreling out of the bushes in front of me, I was a little shocked to see a butt-naked man with super pale skin drag itself out from under the brush on its stomach. What is it with fucking naked dudes on my land? Can I get a pretty woman at least once? Anyways, after I got done being flabbergasted and became aware of my surroundings again, I became aware that the dude was almost on me and was reaching out for my leg, so I jumped on his back, and it worked like a fucking charm. The little bastard didn't have superhuman strength like some of the other things out here, so when I landed on its back, it couldn't do anything but sit there and flop its legs and arm around like a fish. At this point, I'm on the verge of tears. It hears me laughing and tries to turn its head and spit on me, which it can't do. That made me actually start crying laughing. I fell off of it at this point, and the creature quickly turned around and locked its teeth onto the toe of my left boot. I like to wear steel-toe boots around the property because even though they are heavy, I know that in a scuffle being able to kick with a boot and not having to worry about breaking a toe is a little nice advantage. This is what led me to realize that even though the creature didn't have super strength, it did have a super bite force. When it first latched onto my boot, I wasn't worried and started trying to shake the thing off without much urgency. I already knew it wasn't a man by this point because it didn't possess an asshole or other genitals. But I got a little worried when I noticed the end of my boot changing shapes as the steel in the end started to bend. I then said out loud, "If you don't stop right now, I'm going to stab your head, you little shit." It paused as if debating on the decision and then slowly started biting down again while its eyes looked up at me as if to try to call my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. A few seconds later, the thing is frantically clawing its way back into the forest with my favorite Bear Grylls survival knife, trademark, still in the back of its stupid fucking head. Nobody likes a thief. Got back home fine, but I had to replace my favorite knife and get a new pair of boots, so it was a pretty shitty hike. It was the next time I saw one was when I figured out their biggest fear, and it's so stupid. I was down in my creek playing with a new toy I had gotten in town earlier that week. It was this net that was designed to catch little minnows and shit, and it was a blast. I don't really have any use for minnows or whatever other little fish I was catching because I can't go to the only pond on the property that had big fish in it since I made that deal with the crocodile man. So I was just catching them and letting them go. I'm suddenly greeted by the somewhat familiar sound of a grown man sliding across the ground on their belly. It had been almost 2 months since the last incident I had with a pail, but I immediately recognized the sound. This was the dunce that had stolen my knife, and I really valued that Bear Grylls survival knife that can be purchased at your local Walmart. It's a really good product. Unfortunately, the pal that emerged this time wasn't the same one. It had a different face and was more of a light pink than original white that was on the first pal. It was still the same type of creature though. This time, things went down different. As it tore into the clearing that I was in about 30 feet from me, it froze, with its eyes wide. As it had torn through the brush, I was already facing its direction, holding the net spread out to my side the same way a bullfighter holds a red cape, since I was preparing to throw the net into the creek. The pal's eyes were switching between looking at the net and looking at me, so I looked at the net and back to him. Then it clicked. No way. I giggled to myself as I started to catch on to what was happening. I took advantage of my suspicions and started running and flailing the net around at the pail, and it freaked the fuck out. It actually rolled over trying to turn too fast as it spun around and took off into the woods. I then started wheeze laughing as I fell to the ground with tears running down my face. This fucking thing can bite through steel, but is terrified of a nylon net. I know that might not be funny to some because I have a twisted sense of humor, but it made my week. Long story short, I keep the little net in my hiking bag every time I go out now, and every pal I've come across is utterly mindfucked at the sight of it. Good times, man. Wish all the things around here were that easy to deal with. On another note, I got an email from an organization asking me about the Keela that the lady in the tree claimed that I killed in the last post. They wanted to know if I had disposed of the body and if they could come and retrieve the remains from the woods if I had just left it. Then they said something that caught me off guard. When I said something about having to check with the program that put me out here, they responded with, "We are the parent organization of that program," and proceeded to give me my own address and as well details about my former life that only the program should have known about. In all seriousness, I have a dark past and haven't always been a great man, but I'm done with that shit, and it pissed me off that they would even bring it up. I responded with a simple, "Fine, but don't bring that shit up again," and blocked the emailer. No one has shown up yet, but I guess we will see what happens. On a good note, I haven't seen Skinny in a couple of weeks, so that's nice. See y'all the next time, and feel free to leave your questions in the comments, and if you have any ideas what these pals actually are, or what a key loot is, please tell me. If any of you are good with research stuff, I would appreciate it. Talk to y'all soon. Well, I'm back, guys. Welcome to part 4 of this documentary? Catalog? Diary? I honestly don't know what this is anymore because I thought I would only be using this platform to tell stories of stuff that has happened in the past on this property. But now I'm being forced to bring this journal to the present. You see, those people from that organization did come to see about the key loot, and now there is a guy named Mark living in my house and sleeping on my couch. Well, not really sleeping, more of unconscious, but we'll get to that part later. After a few days of this organization that wouldn't tell me their name, not showing up, I figured it was just a troll who managed to figure out my email account and hack into my personal info. But alas, on the third day, he rose. No, not really, but 4 guys did end up knocking on my front door. They were all dressed pretty normally except for the matching gray combat boots that told me that these were men of action, which also means that they were going to try their hardest to push me around and play badass. My suspicions were confirmed when the guy in the lead identified himself as Mark and immediately asked me where I claimed to have actually killed a Keela. What a prick. Like, I still don't know what the fuck a Keela is, and I don't claim to have killed one. The lady in the tree said I killed one. I only assume she's talking about the hairless coyote I killed down near the creek. At the mention of the lady in the tree, they all looked at each other with an expression of, "This dude is a waste of time." The feeling was mutual. I was getting a little impatient by now, so I chimed in with, "If you guys are done being superior to me, I can take you where I killed the coyote." The one behind Mark, whose name I don't remember, said, "Sure, let's get this over with." 30 minutes later, we are standing in front of where I killed the thing that I now know wasn't a coyote. Look, I know I may not have clarified it yet, but I killed this thing well over a year ago. Shit, maybe 2 years. And the only reason that the organization knew that I had killed it was because of the post I made earlier this week. A lot of decomposing and feeding can happen to a body in the woods over that long of a time. On top of that, I hadn't been to this part of the property in a long time because there aren't any trails or interesting locations here. But I was taken aback when I saw what had happened to this body over the course of 2 years it had been out here. Absolutely nothing. The body looked like I had shot it yesterday. Only evidence that it was older was the fact that all the blood had all seeped out of the head wound and long since dried up. But its skin in the face and the fur on its paw were completely preserved. It only had fur on its paws, which was odd. When we got to the body, the snickering crew of 4 went dead silent. "You said this was killed around 2 years ago, didn't you?" said Mark. "Yeah, but I haven't been down here since. Why is this thing still preserved like that? What the hell is happening?" I questioned. One of the guys who hadn't said a word up until this point chimed in. "Keeloots are so unnatural and dark that nothing that occurs in nature will have anything to do with an authentic one. This includes bacteria, fungi, and scavenger animals." Then he muttered something about a level 107 beast. Mark looked at me with a serious face and said, "So if this Kilut story is true, does that mean all that shit you said in those posts about this place were true?" Before I could answer with a, "What do you think, asshole?" a low raspy laughter started to surround us and began closing in. It was coming from all directions. We looked up from the body to see at least 50 hooded figures surrounding us, laughing menacingly. All 4 of the military men pulled their concealed pistols and took aim. But before they could fire a shot, I called out over the laughing, "Hector, I told you next time you and your little chosen crew sneak up on me, I'm kicking your asses again." Everyone paused. The chosen, the 4 organization men, and the Pell that had just crested a hill 30 yards behind one of the cult members. A few seconds later, one of the hooded figures took off his hood to reveal a chubby, jolly-looking face with rosy cheeks and wire-rimmed prescription glasses. "Oh man, we didn't know they were with you, Cole. We thought they were trespassers. We're sorry," Hector said with a downcast gaze. "Why do you even need them to begin with?" I retorted. Hector hesitated for a moment and said, "Our god wants a real sacrifice, and those white crawly humanoid thingies just aren't doing it for him anymore." At this moment, the pail that I could see frozen on top of the hill turned and bolted back into the woods. Hector then proceeded to call to the other hooded figures. "They're with Cole. We can't have him." There was a collective sigh as all of the chosen looked at the ground and walked away into the woods. I didn't notice until they were all gone that the 4 organization men hadn't lowered their weapons the entire time. "You pussies ready to head back to the house? It gets dark in 45 minutes, and if those guys got you on edge, then you won't last that long at night." Mark shot me a look that explained in detail how much he hated me, without the need for words, while his 3 partners put on thick rubber gloves and put the Kilut into a sort of body bag. As we were walking back towards the house with the 3 stooges carrying the corpse of the dog demon, Mark starts questioning me. "What was that group back there? Some cult, I guess. They told me they worship Cunt Hulu or something." He seems kind of taken aback for a second and then asked, "Why did they seem wary of you but not flinch when we had guns trained on them?" "Simple. They don't fear death, but they do crack when exposed to severe pain for long enough." Again, Mark seemed surprised by my answer. He started to strike me as simple-minded. "So how did you inflict this pain on them?" I don't want to answer any more of these questions. I really didn't. This was the kind of shit that I don't like to dwell on. That was a different life, and I don't like it when it seeps back into the present. Sure, it's nice to have the local murder cult leave you alone, but I use methods that I regret to get to that luxury. The last thing Mark said to me on our hike back to the house was, "Look dude, my mind is telling me you are batshit crazy, but my instincts are telling me that you're a threat. Which one are you?" I looked him dead in the eyes and mumbled, "That's up to you." Let me tell you, the look on his face was priceless. I love mind games. A few minutes later, we reached the house and all 4 of the goons walked up to the big black van they had arrived in. They started loading up the body, and as I reached my doorknob to go inside, I hear Mark start raising his voice while talking on his phone. "What? This guy isn't even right in the head. I know there's stuff here, but why? Look, let me get a team down. Okay, yes, he does have experience, but... Wait, what did you just say?" He then stares at me with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. They told him where I came from. I could tell by the way he looked at me. He hung up the phone without any more arguing and began to walk over to me. As he reaches me, he says, "My higher-ups have told me that I need to stay with you for a while and keep an eye on the activity around here." I responded with, "You can't be serious." "Wish I wasn't," he said back, then added, "They also wanted me to remind you that you didn't pay for this house for this property." With that, I opened the door with my best butler impression and gestured for him to enter my home. As he walked through the door and dropped what I assumed to be his emergency bug-out bag on the floor, he froze. Can I just say one thing real quick? Fuck Skinny. I didn't hear how heavily he was breathing at first because of the van was making noise as it was driving away, but as those sounds faded, I realized that Mark was breathing like he had just sprinted a marathon. His eyes were trained on the window, with his body completely rigid, with his hand on his hip ready to draw his gun. I followed his gaze to the window where I had confronted Skinny many times before, and sure enough, there he was. Only this time he wasn't someone I recognized. This time he was a fairly attractive, tall, and athletically blonde woman. She was smiling, holding a heart-shaped balloon. Upon closer inspection, I could tell that the balloon read, "It's a girl." I rushed in front of Mark to try to snap him out of whatever trance he was in, but I soon realized that tears were welling up in his eyes. By this I gathered that this woman was no longer with us, and the girl most likely wasn't either. Fuck you, Skinny. I calmly started explaining what Skinny was to Mark, but soon after I started, he stopped me. I read the story's cool. I know that you talked about this thing before, but I'm trained to handle these kinds of things, so don't worry about me, because I'm gonna fucking kill it. With that, he made a mad dash to the back door in an effort to get outside and confront Skinny. I managed to block him and push him to the ground, saying that he won't come inside, so just keep your shit together and we live. Mark wasn't in a listening mood, though. He jumped back to his feet, straight into a fighting stance. Oh great. After a second, he threw a fast left hook straight for my face, but he wasn't fast enough. I ducked under the swing and connected my elbow with the underside of his chin. He went out like a light, and by the time the scuffle was over, Skinny was gone. I put Mark on the couch and now I'm typing this, thinking about going through his computer before he wakes up. Anyways, that's it for today. Please, if anyone knows what a keloid is, let me know. What did I kill? And what did Mark mean by he was trained to deal with this kind of stuff? What is he, a monster hunter or something? I'll try to get some answers before my next post. See y'all soon. I usually try to do some kind of intro to these posts, but today I'm too excited to take the time to do that. If you haven't read my previous posts, you should though. They are quite a bit more action-packed and explain all the events that lead to where I am now. If you haven't read them, you won't have any idea what I'm talking about. Do y'all remember the last post when I joked about Mark being some kind of monster hunter or something? Well, I went through his computer and I'll be damned if he isn't. He's got files on even more files about all these different tangibles, which I think just means monsters. I even managed to find a file on the keloid. No wonder they didn't believe I had killed one. Apparently a keloid is a creature in Native American mythology that is described as a furless dog-like thing. It does have fur on its paws though, which supposedly makes it impossible to hear or track in the wild. Pretty tame so far, right? Don't worry, it gets better. Apparently looking at them is supposed to immediately fry your brain and disorient you, making you an easy kill for the creature, but that didn't happen to me. The only reason I can think of for the mind cooker effect not happening to me is because I don't process things the same anymore. Not after the events that led me to live out here. Or maybe it wasn't a keloid. There were a few more details I didn't get to read because before I could finish I felt cold steel on my neck. Mark had woken up and was now pressing a knife to my throat. What do you think you're doing with my computer? The fuck does it look like? I'm trying to figure out who the man that was passed out on my couch is. Mark thought for a second, still not moving the knife from my neck. Then he asked, why, no, how did you knock me out? I know you have a dodgy history, but close quarter fightings is my specialty. What I can remember is going to hit you, then it went dark. Careful not to move and slit my own throat, I said. You got desperate and went for a one-hit knockout. Frankly, your left hook is too slow to hit your opponent when you clearly telegraphed exactly what you were planning on doing with your hips. I jumped under the blow and threw an elbow to the bottom of your jaw. The knife loosened a little. You seem to know your stuff. Why pretend to be a dumbass then? Excuse me? First of all, I'm not pretending to be anything. Second of all, fuck you. The knife fell away completely now. I took the opportunity to turn and start asking my own questions. So you are an actual fucking monster hunter, huh? He paused to a moment before replying. Yeah, I guess I am. So why is an organization that employs Monster Hunter also the owner of the organization that is helping me escape my past? Mark winced this time. Not a good sign. Cool. The organization that is claiming to help you escape your past probably doesn't exist. My organization has many false companies that it uses to gather intelligence and run experiments. I have reason to believe that they put you out here knowing about your past in an effort to see if anyone could survive in an area that is known for having extremely high levels of tangible activity. They also knew that if you were to die, they wouldn't have to worry about people looking for you. However, I also think that you have probably far surpassed their expectations. The higher-ups haven't actually told me so, but they can't possibly expect anyone to kill a keloid on their own. or have fun with a creature like a fleshgate. Holy shit, that was a lot to take in. I took a deep breath and cautiously asked, "What the fuck is a fleshgate?" Mark put both of his hands on his head and let out a "Ugh! Seriously, dude, does anything even faze you? Fleshgates are those things you call the Pales. They are only level 4 but still too much for most people to handle, that I don't fuck with on a regular basis like you claim to do." There goes that fucking level thing again. I'd seen various levels ranging from 2s and 3s all the way up in the hundreds on the reports that I read while browsing Mark's computer, but I had no clue what they meant. What's all this level shit about? All the monsters on your computer have one, but I don't know what they mean. Mark shot me an angry look. Guess he was still mad that I had gone through his shit. We base a beast's strength on how many unarmed adult men we predict it could take down before being overwhelmed. 1 man is equal to 1 level. Just then remember that the level beside Kilo was 107. So hold up, you're telling me that the Kilo I killed was rated at? Before I could finish, he interrupted me. 107. No way. I knew about the mind-bagging stuff, but that thing was no larger than a golden retriever. No way in hell it could kill 107 people. Your people predict that the dog thing could kill 107 people? No, dumbass. They predict it could kill 106, then lose at the 107th. I had trouble believing him. Look, Mark, I read about how they can cook your brain when you look at them, but I stared at the thing in the eyes and it had no effect on me. At all. Why? This puzzled him. I really don't know. And that's why I didn't believe it when I first heard that some dude claimed to have shot a Kilo to death on Reddit. What really confused me is why the higher-ups decided it was worth getting a team to go investigate. Now I know they were fully aware of the caliber of shit that happens here. Speaking of caliber, can I see the gun that you used on the Kilo? Damn it. I knew this was going to happen as soon as I mentioned the gun in my posts. The organization had a no-gun rule for me, which is why it was a pretty big deal that the lady in the tree helped me get my hands on one. But now they knew, and they weren't gonna let me keep it. Fuck off, dude. I'm keeping the gun whether your bosses want me to or not. To my surprise, Mark looked genuinely confused by my sudden response. I don't want to take your fucking gun. I just want to see it. A normal pistol shouldn't be able to kill a Kilo with 1 shot no matter how perfect the aim is. I need to see what makes this gun different, and bring the bullets too. They are what I'm really interested in. He really didn't know about the rule I had been given about no guns. Weird. I reluctantly went into my room and retrieved my trusty .45 caliber thunderstick and the only box of ammo I had left. I started off with 2 large boxes of bullets, but over time my supply was whittled down to just half a box. As soon as I dropped the weapon and ammo on the coffee table, Mark immediately started inspecting one of my bullets. Knew it. Do you even know what these are, Cole? 45 caliber? I responded somewhat slowly. Without looking up from the bullet, Mark began to explain. These are gnat rounds, specifically designed to deal with unholy creatures of chaos. They are created when the metals used to make the bullets are blessed by a Native American shaman and medicine men. You can tell what they are by the slight warmth they give off and the small vibrations you feel when you squeeze them between your fingers. However, these are the most active rounds I have ever come in contact with. They are much warmer and vibrate more than the rounds that I'm issued. If that lady in the tree gave you these, she's likely more powerful than you realize. Mark looked up, maybe expecting some type of awe at this revelation. Well, that's neat, I responded, somewhat dumbfounded. I guess it was cool to have enchanted bullets and all, but it didn't change much in the grand scheme of things. Kind of like how your car speedometer goes up to 120 miles per hour. Most people won't ever drive that fast, but it's cool to know that when the time comes, you might be able to. Then again, I guess the magic bullets came in handy when I shot the Kilo, as well as a few other things, so maybe I should be more grateful. Before Mark could scold me again for my lack of reaction to his astounding observations, we were both interrupted by a knocking on the door. We looked over to see one of the 3 guys Mark had been working with when he first arrived. Through the window in my door, we could see him frantically beating on the wood and looking over his shoulder. Mark, they attacked the van. Holy shit, Jack is dead and Phillips is hurt bad. Come help me carry him, please. Mark started to jump up, then caught himself. Cole, this thing is good. It almost got me for a second time. Shit, it almost got me with the fucking help me technique as well. I started to smile. At least Mark wasn't a complete dumbass. I watched Skinny as he began that stupid grin he always did when he got figured out. Then he darted off. Not much has happened over the past few days, and I'm starting to get used to my new roommate. I'll still keep y'all posted though. Something wild is bound to happen sooner or later, especially with all the patrols Mark keep making us go on. Cole signing off, for now. Well, last post I said something wild was bound to happen sooner or later. I wasn't disappointed. Mark has been living here for about a week now, and he finally got what he was looking for. Action. It wasn't really in his favor though. I mentioned the patrols he keeps taking me on last post, but I didn't really go into detail. He calls them patrols, but it's honestly more of a scavenger hunt. He even gave me a damn list. Like a little kid or something. On the list were specific signs and objects that are indicative of tangible activity. Tangible is fancy talk for monsters. I asked him what an intangible was as a joke, and he nonchalantly said, ghosts and other shit that you can't touch. After I realized he was serious, I popped the question, why not just say monsters and ghosts and shit? He thought for a moment, because the people who name this stuff are nerds. Fair enough, I guess. I'm on a tangent again. Back to the scavenger hunt. The list he gave me had a lot of stuff on it, and I was walking through the woods for the second time that day. One thing on the list kept catching my eye. Stairs. Why the fuck would there stairs be even on this list? That's not paranormal at all. Also, if there had been stairs in these woods, I would have already found them. That's not something you miss. I mean, I thought this whole search around for stuff idea was stupid from the beginning anyways. I never searched for the hellspawn on this property. It always found me by itself. The only reason I even participated in Mark's patrols were to humor him so he wouldn't be as crabby. And because I like to get outside anyways. Even so, stairs. I was looking at the list, eyeing down the word stairs for the millionth time when it suddenly got dark. Confused, I look up to see that it hasn't actually gotten dark, I was just in a shadow. A shadow that was being cast by a tall, skinny wooden wall. I had been to this exact spot a few days earlier and there was no such object. The wall was about 5 feet wide and 10 feet tall, and I somehow almost walked directly into it without realizing. I began to walk around it and quickly realized it wasn't a wall. Yep, you probably guessed it. It was the back of a fucking flight of stairs. I was honestly fucking shook. It was like I had summoned them after thinking about them too much. I immediately called Mark on the radio he had given me for situations like this and yelled, "Dude, I actually found stairs. Like real friggin' stairs out here." I hadn't been this excited about something in a long time, and I had no idea why I was excited now. I think it had something to do with me thinking the stairs were such a stupid thing to look for, only to end up finding some when I never expected to. Either way, I barely heard Mark respond with, "Okay, just stay put for a minute, I'll be there soon. And please, stop screaming. You're scaring away all the things out there." He said something else, but I wasn't listening. I was far too engrossed in these stairs, I had to go up them. It wasn't like they were calling to me or anything. It was more of the fact that I was pretty sure I would be able to see my house from the top. So with Mark still saying unintelligible commands on the radio, I began to ascend. As I walked up the stairs, the woods around me started to quiet down, which is weird in retrospect, but I really didn't pay any attention to that. Another thing I noticed was that there wasn't any leaves or dirt or anything on the steps. Anyone who has experience in the woods know that it only takes a few hours for Mother Nature to spread her shit all over any given object that is left in her care. The real anomaly happened when I hit the top step though. See, the second my heels hit the top step, I heard Mark let out a, "What in the son of a bitch?" I froze. I started weighing my options. If I let whatever was out there kill Mark, I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. I also told myself that I wasn't going to kill people anymore. Does it really count as killing him if I let him just die though? They'd probably just replace him anyways. Guess I'll go help. And with that thought, I went to go help him. I honestly expected there to be a pail clamped onto his foot or for him to have fallen in one of Camo's traps. But alas, all I found was Mark, without shoes on, just socks, clenching the toes of each of his feet in his hands. Before I could even ask him what was going on, he stuttered. You went on the damn stairs, didn't you?" "Yes, and why does that matter? I'm telling you, if looks could castrate, bad shit happens when you go up the stairs, you dick. I told you over the radio not to go up them." "Ah, must have missed that part. What happened to you anyways?" Now this part is kinda nasty. Mark let go of the end of one of his socks to reveal that the toe area was covered in blood. He then removed the sock, and I shit you not, all of his toenails were gone. Damn, how'd you manage that? Are you daft, Cole? You did this when you went up those stairs. Yeah, it sounds stupid, I know, but I kinda believe him, because I know for a fact those stairs weren't normal. I'm certain of this because when I went back to where they were to show Mark, who was limping something awful, they weren't there anymore, just disappeared. Mark wasn't surprised by this either, and in case you're wondering, I could not see my house from the top, which was a bummer. That's about it for the stairs, but something else did happen yesterday, the day after the stair incident. I actually met a brand new monster, at least new to me anyways. I think Mark knew what it was, but he won't tell me. It gave him the spooks though. As you may have already gathered, it happened on one of Mark's patrols. He was actually adjusting to life without toenails pretty good, I'll give him that. The night before, he took a large amount of bandages and some rubbing alcohol from my bathroom. Guess he did a good job on himself because he was walking pretty close to normal now. I did hear a lot of groaning and heavy breathing that night in my living room though. I hope it was him patching himself up and not him having fun on his laptop, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, we were walking through an area of the woods that stays somewhat dark during the day due to the dense tree cover blocking out most of the sun. Other than the lack of light, everything seemed pretty docile. That was until Mark started complaining about a noise. Cole, do you hear that, I think it's like static or something. What? No, I don't hear a thing. Mark put a hand on my chest, stopping me mid-sentence. I look over at him to see what's up, and he is staring at me with extremely wide eyes. We need to get to the house, now. I had never seen him get this flustered, so I knew things were serious. I nodded, and we both turned to run to the house, but the tall man was already blocking the way. Now, when I say a tall man, I mean a really tall man. I'm also fairly certain he wasn't a man. Tall man just makes a good name. He was between 10 and 12 feet tall and was wearing clothes made out of what looked like dirty brown and tan rags stitched together. These rags covered his whole body, including his hands, feet, and face. He was also thin, but something deep in my gut told me that he held some kind of an unnatural strength. As his image sank into my brain, I heard Mark whisper, "Holy shit, truly one of them," off to my left. There was a complete silence for a while, not actually sure how long. The only thing I could hear was a slight static buzzing sound. No one moved in the silence, not Mark, not me, not the pail that was about to bite into Mark's leg while he was distracted. Wait. Holy shit, Mark, look out, pail on your right. With surprising speed, Mark pulled out his Glock and put 2 shots in the pal's head. It didn't move after that, but the tall man did. The sudden scuffle seemed to set the tall bastard off into a rage, and the once subtle static sound grew into a roar. It was like no sound I had ever heard before, maybe something like the sound of metal being ground up by other metal. However, the sound was the least of our worries. It started sprinting at us. It was originally about 30 yards away, but it seemed to cover the distance in the blink of an eye. He was on us before we could react. He went for Mark first, reached out for him with one of those long skinny arms. His fingers seemed to stretch out just so that they could reach all the way around Mark's torso. As Mark was lifted off the ground kicking and yelling, he emptied the rest of his clip into the tall man's head. It did nothing. That's about the time when the big black tentacles ruptured out from the creature's back. 6 new weapons now ripping holes in the rags. This thing must be terrible at making its own clothes. Like, how hard would it be to just make tentacle holes so you don't end up ripping your shirts? Anyhow, I really didn't want this big fellow ripping out Mark, so I had to figure something out. Before I managed to obliterate old Marky, I drew my gun and emptied my own clip into various parts of the monster in an effort to find a weaker spot. No luck. In fact, the bullets bounced off of him. One of them whizzed right past my ear. It was like under those rags he was made of steel, but I'm no quitter. I now had his attention, and I'm pretty sure Mark was going unconscious at this point because he couldn't breathe due to the thing's death grip. I drew my brand new Bear Grylls survival knife and lunged with all my strength at its leg, but I didn't stab it. If bullets couldn't get through this thing's skin, my knife didn't have a chance. But I had a plan. I got behind it, only to get snatched into the air by one of its tentacles. I was immediately faced to, rags? With this thing. Its tentacle was wrapped tightly around my stomach. It now had a Mark and I both exactly where it wanted. I swear I could hear deep demonic laughter within the still roaring static that filled my brain. but it stopped laughing when I started. I began scream laughing, not really sure why. Sometimes I think I might just be insane. The tall man cocked his head to the side as if saying, "You do know you lost, right?" The only thing I was able to say before the last of my air was squeezed out of me was, "I really hope this fucking works." And with that, I took the knife that was still in my hand and sliced at the tentacle as hard as I could. My hope was that, since the tentacle could move so fluidly, the skin would have to be softer and weaker, otherwise it would be stiff and not flexible. Oh, how right that theory was. I was met with a spray of hot black liquid and the static sound morphing into the sound of nails on a chalkboard. I fell 7 or 8 feet to the ground and landed flat on my back. That shit hurt, but adrenaline is a hell of a chemical, so I was back on my feet almost immediately. 2 things I noticed off the bat: it was still holding a now unconscious Mark, and my attack hadn't quite managed to slice through the entire tentacle, but I was close. The thing seemed to be deciding on whether to retreat or try to kill me again. I took advantage of his slight hesitation and leapt at the now limp tentacle. I grabbed it and yanked it with all the force I could muster. Now it completely severed itself from the beast. Suddenly, all the sounds in my head stopped, and I heard Mark hit the ground off to my right. I look up only to see the tall man's covered head aimed at its now disconnected appendage, then at me, then at the woods behind him, then at me, then at his tentacle. Something tells me he's never been injured before. After he finished looking at stuff, he bolted backwards just as fast as he had approached us before. Yes, he sprinted off backwards. What is it with monsters and running backwards? Seems silly to me, and dangerous. Anyways, I ended up having to carry Mark over my shoulder back to the house, and he could stand to lose a few pounds. He woke up a few hours later and interrogated me on how I managed to scare the thing off after he passed out. I told him I just ripped off my clothes and started running at the thing until it ran off. Mark said he won't let me see the thing's file until I tell him what really happened, but I kinda want to sell the naked story. Maybe I'll tell him what really happened later and let y'all know the name of the creature. Or maybe I'll keep trying to convince Mark that, oh, he's a monster hunter, I'm a monster predator. That's it for now though, guys. I'll post again soon. And in case you were wondering, I haven't seen Skinny in a few days and still haven't heard from the lady in the tree in a while. But life goes on, right? Be sure to check out the other parts of the series. I'll have links below. Until next time, Cole signing off. So, Mark got possessed. It was a new experience for me, honestly. Also, I think we are going to have to deal with Skinny soon. He destroyed a van the other day that was carrying supplies out to us. I'll get to that later though. I actually learned a lot from the spirit that possessed Mark before it left, and yes, it left. I didn't have to banish it or anything. Let me just tell the story before I end up spoiling something. The day after the tall man incident, refer to part 6 for more information on that, Mark started acting funny, but in a good way in my opinion. He was much less commanding and hostile, like he had no energy. This meant he didn't want to keep checking around the property for monsters constantly, and I was able to do what I wanted again without him complaining. When I noticed the change in his behavior, I thought of 2 reasons that could be causing Mark to act this way. 1, he was sick. 2, he was being a little scaredy prick after almost being killed by the tall man. Turns out I was wrong on both accounts. After 2 days of Mark being reserved and borderline unresponsive on my couch, I knew something was up. As much as I didn't want to admit it, Mark is a badass in his own right. He isn't the kind of person to crumble after a traumatic event. He's a fighter. I was aware of his unnaturally aggressive fight over flight response when he first encountered Skinny and almost rushed out to certain death just to show Skinny that he wasn't here to play games. On top of that, he didn't show any real signs of sickness. He was tired and slow to respond, yes, but he wasn't sensitive to light like a concussion. He wasn't hot or cold, no runny nose, no trouble breathing, etc. It was on the 3rd day of this strange behavior, yesterday, when I confronted him and got an answer. So, Mark, any idea why you're so tired and lazy and shit? Just as I finished asking this, Mark shot up to a sitting position on the couch and whipped his head around to face me. In a voice much higher than his regular voice, he exclaimed, "I thought you would never ask. I finally finished taking over this body a few hours ago and was waiting for the right moment to reveal myself. You see, Mark is on vacation right now and I'm taking his place. Oh, nice. When will he be back? His wide smile quickly found itself upside down. You know what, Cole? This is why I really hate you. You are literally no fun whatsoever. Well, if you aren't Mark, then I don't know you. And how would you know that I'm not fun? Don't you know it's wrong to judge a book by its cover? The replacement Mark's voice was starting to sound irritating. I'm a ghost, dipshit. I've been here for months trying to fuck with you. I even tried to possess you, but unfortunately for me, you're incompatible. And no matter how hard I tried to get your attention or scare you, I was always met with you just brushing it off. I worked really hard too, like that time I moved the TV while you were watching, or the time I put holes in all your socks to make your big toe pop out. I was finally starting to catch on to what was happening at this point. Oh, I thought the TV was just with the... Holy shit, you're the one who put holes in my socks? You piece of cock meat. You made me think I had sandpaper toes. He chuckled a little. At least that one worked. Anyways, as you probably already knew, being a ghost has its limits. It's extremely difficult to have any effect on the physical world, and we can't affect living tissue in any kind of direct way whatsoever. But now that I have a vessel, I can finally kill you. Whoa, shit. That escalated quickly. As I process the new information that I have just received, Fake Mark speaks up again. One thing I bet you didn't know is that as a ghost, when I take over a body, I can't see all the host's memories, but the body still retains any natural reflexes and skills that the host has acquired through his or her lifetime. And this guy has some seriously badass skills. Fake Mark then sprang to his feet and did a roundhouse kick that shattered a nearby lamp into a million pieces, then turned to my wall and punched as hard as he could. I'm pretty sure he expected to punch right through, but only ended up leaving some bloody knuckle prints. Yeah, there's a stud there, I said as Fake Mark doubled over holding his damaged hand. I now realize that. Thank you. He wheezed out before standing back up straight again. Even so, this guy's plenty skilled enough to end your sorry ass, Fake Mark shouted with a wicked grin. You must have been out the first night he got here, but okay. He cocked his head a little after this comment, then quickly brushed it off and lunged at me. I'll try to explain what happened next as best I can. As he rushed me, he threw a right-handed jab at my head. I countered this by hooking my arm over the inside of his shoulder with my left arm as I ducked the punch, and put my right arm between his legs so I could lift him off the ground. I then did a fireman throw, which basically means I tossed him into the air and subsequently slammed him back onto the ground by exploding back up to a standing position and releasing my hold on his leg while still keeping a strong grip on his shoulder. This made Fake Mark fly over my head and still slam onto the ground on my feet. I wanted to explain how this happened so people don't just accuse me of bullshitting. And for the record, I don't think this would have worked on real Mark. I'm sure he would have seen it coming. Anyways, this should have knocked the breath out of him, so I wasn't ready when he punched the back of my knee and dead-legged me so perfectly I went straight to my ass. Middle school me would have taken notes on perfect execution of this move. Fake Mark ended up getting back to his feet before me, unfortunately, and jumped onto me, putting me flat on my back. Fake Mark then reeled his fist back for a final blow. As his fist flew towards my face, I managed to move my head to the side at the last second, and his fist connected with the hardwood floor at a respectable speed. He may have been able to recover from this quickly if it hadn't been the same hand that he already smashed on the wall a few moments before. As Fake Mark winced at the pain, I threw my leg into the air and proceeded to connect with his no-no square. It was more effective than the slam from earlier, that's for sure. I stood up slowly while Fake Mark tried to decide if he should use his remaining good hand to grab his crotch or his shattered knuckles. Before he could decide, I grabbed his Glock that was sitting on the coffee table and took aim. Didn't take Fake Mark long to look up and realize that I now had complete control of the situation. He stood up but didn't make any further advance at me. He instead opted to put a pouty face and plop down into my recliner in defeat. Then it hit me. Why are you afraid of dying? That isn't even your body. You can't die again, can you? Fake Mark snapped back in a still somewhat aggressive tone. If this body dies while I'm in it, I'll get sent back. And I don't think I'll be able to escape again if that happens. Why are people always so vague when I ask them a question? Escape from where? That's an important detail. I fully expected Fake Mark to snap back again, but all he did was look at me in the eyes and mumble, "Hell." The absolute terror on his face seemed genuine. and usually I try to stay respectful and patient when someone is in an emotional state like that. Unfortunately for Fake Mark, he wasn't a person, he was a ghost that was possessing my, acquaintance? And I don't really appreciate that very much, so I continued my questioning. How'd you escape hell the first time? Fake Mark was surprisingly cooperative now. I found a gateway and walked through it. I ended up on this land. I think there's some sort of portal to hell around here. It seems that it's mostly ancient creatures that come out through instead of regular spirits. The only thing I can figure is that they were banished to hell only to be let back out at this location. Damn, I was expecting a story about a battle with the devil, not an actual plausible cause for all the crazy shit that goes on here. Well, you seem to know your shit. Why do I get the idea that you know more about hell and monsters than the average lost soul? I was a preacher in life. Then why were you in hell? Because I studied the occult in my spare time and skimmed out on the donation bowl? Ah, that makes sense. Guess God is cheeky like that. But what makes you think all the weirdos in those woods come from a portal to hell? Fake Mark then started speaking in a more relaxed and confident manner. Not all the beasts out there come from the portal. Actually, most of them don't. Just some of the particularly nasty ones. You met one the other day. I think you called him the Tall Man. He's a recent immigrant. I think he got banished in the 70s by some monster hunter group. He was one of the more average ones, but you already know the most powerful one, don't you? At this, Fake Mark started grinning. He was right. I knew exactly who he was talking about. It's that Chuck Hulu guy that the Chosen worship, isn't it? Fake Mark's grin transformed into a grimace. Holy hell, Cole, I seriously fucking despise you. It's that thing you call skinny. Cthulhu is a cosmic entity from another plane of existence, separate from hell. Skinny, on the other hand, is absolutely a product of hell. So he's a demon then? No, not a demon, but an amalgamation of at least a few other creatures that I'm pretty sure old Lucifer created himself. If I had to guess, Lucy is planning to take over the mortal plane and is throwing some creatures out here to test the waters before his final assault. Shit. That isn't good. I might be on his bad side since I keep mooning Skinny. Also, do you know what Skinny is? No. But I do know that he doesn't seem to be able to enter a home without being invited in. And when he takes the appearance of something, whether it be a sumo wrestler or a baby rabbit, he maintains the same weight and strength as his regular form. And how do you know he stays the same weight? Because I once saw him spying on you as a squirrel, only to snap the giant branch he was perched on under his weight. Then he proceeded to shred the trunk of the tree with his little squirrel claws until it fell over in frustration. I remember that tree. I thought it had been attacked by the family of six-legged beavers that lived down by the creek, but I guess I was wrong. It was beginning to seem like Fake Mark was a serious asset when it came to knowing about the stuff around here. I'm also curious about what different monsters make up Skinny. If any of you have any ideas, feel free to comment them because I'm pretty clueless as of now. The inventation thing is from vampires though, isn't it? I don't know, it sounds too cliche to be true. Anything else you want to get off your chest, preacher man? Guess I hit a nerve with that question. Fuck you, I'm a woman. I'm tired of you being so damn clueless. What? I didn't know that women preachers were a thing. Again, poor choice of words. That's it, I'm leaving. We were practically screaming at each other at this point, which in hindsight was really unnecessary. Okay, to be fair, you don't look or sound like a girl in Mark's body. And all I ask is that you answer one more question. Fine, she yelled. I had been wondering about this since the beginning of the conversation, so I was ecstatic to get one more chance to ask. You said I was incompatible for you to possess me. Why is that? At this, Fake Mark took on a serious expression. It means that you are either a descendant of some saint or some godly power favors you. Or maybe, nah, couldn't be that. And with that, Fake Mark seems to pass out. Guess it was the spirit leaving the body. Soon after, real Mark started to wake up and ask where he was. I told him it was a long story, but he should probably get some fresh air before I told him. When he grabbed my outstretched hand so I could help him up, I squeezed. While he yelled in pain, I calmly told him, "You owe me a new lamp." That's all for Mark's possession. He actually took the news pretty well. I think he's been possessed before or something. I kept the part about me being incompatible to myself. Not sure why. It just didn't seem like something I should share at the time. Things are heating up around here. Something big is going to happen soon, and with the information we got out of Spirit Preacher Lady, it's starting to look like me and Mark can't do this on our own. I think he called in backup, but he won't actually tell me for sure. He just keeps looking out the windows a lot. I'll update again soon. Cole, signing off. Guys, I've got a bit of explaining to do. I've lied to all you on a few occasions now. I haven't lied about any of the creatures, ghosts, or people though, so don't worry about that. But I have lied about how I acquired some of my possessions. As you all should know by now, I did not purchase my .45 caliber handgun. It was gifted to me somewhat indirectly by a good friend. What I have not explicitly stated yet was that I didn't exactly buy my house or property either. I'm sure many of you already figured that out though. What I'm getting at was that I was placed here. 3 years ago, I was approached by an organization while I was hiding out in a bar in Mexico. I have no idea how they found me because even though I had been shit-faced for 2 solid weeks, I know for sure no one in the area even spoke English, so I don't think I could have ratted myself out. I fucking tried to find someone honestly. Also, the people I was hiding from are not paranormal in any way, and that is a story I'm not certain I want to share right now, but I may share later on. Anyway, this group approached me and made an offer. Again, I had been shit-faced for 2 straight weeks, so my memory is spotty. From what I can remember, they said something about helping me escape the problems I had created with, that group. Normally, I would have immediately suspected that they were the enemy in disguise, but again, drunk-ass me thought that this is the greatest fucking thing that could happen. I mean, they were offering me a free place to stay with a limited amount of monthly allowance to purchase food and whatever else I needed. I just assumed it was government funded. Then again, the government thinks I died 12 years ago? I think? None of that matters now though. See, I pretty much figured out what really happened behind the scenes with some help from Mark. We've been sharing a hospital room for the last week, so we had plenty of time to think. I'll get to how we got here soon. I think this is gonna be a long post. So as Mark and I can figure, the organization that was offering me witness protection type services was actually a fake front that was run by the monster hunting group that Mark works for. Their goal was to find someone with an above average survival skills to see how long a human can last in an area with a high concentration of fucked up things roaming around. Let me emphasize that the assholes that planned this experiment probably didn't expect me to survive my first encounter, let alone live there for 3 years. That's when the Kilu showed up. They got giddy. According to Mark, they have never been able to observe a dead Kilu before the one that I had killed. He sure knows how to make me feel special. That's when Mark and his crew got sent out, and old Marky has been with me ever since. I think that was 4-ish weeks ago. But enough of the theory shit. Let me tell you about the clusterfuck that put me and Mark in the hospital. That ghost preacher bitch that possessed Mark a while back only got about half of her facts right. I found this out when Mark and I decided to go to the home base of the local cult that lives on the back of my property. They call themselves the Chosen. I don't know what they were chosen for, but I know for sure that no one in that ragtag group of dipshits shouldn't be chosen for anything but extermination. They have tried to sacrifice me 3 different times now. The last attempt, they went as far as attempting to try and burn down my house, but I caught them in the act and convinced their leader, a short Latino man named Hector, to not bother me anymore. I really didn't want anything to do with them because they are so awkward. But Mark was certain that they probably have some information about why more deadly creatures seem to be popping up at a higher rate, or maybe at least some knowledge about Skinny. I tried to convince him that I knew more than the Chosen when it came to Skinny, but he insisted that I was about as observant as Helen Keller, whoever the fuck that is. So there we are, standing in front of their little shantytown that they call the Ponderosa. It's mostly made up of metal sheds and parts of mobile homes. Yes, parts, and people living inside with whole walls missing. Keep in mind, these people aren't poor. Almost all of the members have nice cars and trucks parked outside their homes. A new Chevy Silverado, nice Ford Mustang, and many others that I don't know the name off the top of my head. I don't really understand what philosophy leads them to living happily in a shithole like this. to each their own, I guess. We found Hector pretty quickly. He was in the middle of the squalor preaching about something or the other. He noticed me and Mark, and almost immediately, due to the fact that neither of us were wearing dark robes like the rest of the cultists. Mark was wearing black combat pants and a great long sleeve shirt that made him look like he meant business. I, on the other hand, was wearing blue jeans and a Twizzler t-shirt. Hector stated somewhat solemnly, "I guess we have guests now," and proceeded to step down off his upside-down 5-gallon bucket. As he approached, Mark whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "They're surrounding us." And sure enough, he was right. I look around to see not only Hector approaching us, but about 60 different cultists approaching us from different directions. They were closing in, and both Mark and I prepared to draw our weapons to defend ourselves when Hector called out, "Children, calm down. Don't you see he's got a gun now? Let's please try not to get on his nerves now." I could see Mark start smirking out of the corner of his eye, but I didn't have the heart to tell him that they weren't talking about him. "Look, Mr. Hector, right? We were just wondering if you had any idea about where some of the paranormal creatures in this area are coming from." This question seemed to make Hector uncomfortable. We haven't been seeing anything like that around here, so... Just then, one of the black-robed cultists came bursting through the surrounding crowd. "Grand Bishop Hector, the baby doll spider came back!" At this revelation, Hector knew that we knew that he knew what we wanted to know. All he could do was look back and forth from his distraught follower and us. He finally decided to just awkwardly smile at us. As much as Mark wanted to continue questioning, we both noticed that the cultist that came back was missing large chunks of his robe and his flesh. While the man stood there hyperventilating in front of his leader, Mark pointed out something to me. "Cole, he's holding a severed hand," he whispered. We didn't want anyone to overhear us while all the focus was on Hector trying to console the hysterical man. I responded to Mark's observation with, "Look, if this thing is coming, we may have to put the skinny hunt on hold. As much as these people are a nuisance, I really don't want to see a community get slaughtered." Mark shot a conflicted look at me. I agree, but we aren't prepared for a fight with something like that. While we were waiting, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Sonia, Hector's second in command. I hadn't seen her since the last time I was in their little neighborhood, and I hadn't really left on a good note. Now she looked deadly serious. "Cole, we have all the information you want and some that you probably don't. But before I tell you, we need your help. That thing is going to tear us to shreds, but I have a way to get rid of it." Sonia was the only member of the Chosen that struck me as somewhat smart. I think she was raised into the cult, and that was the only reason she hasn't left. In some twisted way, it's her only family. Before Mark could protest, I answered, "We are in. So what do we..." I was interrupted before I could finish my sentence by a loud screeching. The sound was beyond unnatural. I could describe it as a young woman screaming in terror, but the tone kept changing instantly like a shitty auto-tune from hell. Mark and I looked at each other. Fuck. Fuck indeed, Mark. Fuck indeed. I looked back to ask Sonia what she planned on doing, but when I looked in her direction, she was already off sprinting. I really hoped that she was grabbing some sort of secret weapon and not just being a coward. I didn't have time to dwell on those thoughts though. "There's the beast, cresting the hill," Mark said as he jerked my attention back to the situation at hand. Sure enough, as I looked through the trees that led uphill, I could see a mass of tan, white, and dark red charging down the hill. As it got closer, the cultists started running around wildly. Some pulled out spears and then knives, but that looked like they were trying to use chopsticks for the first time. They weren't going to be much help. I was starting to make out some details on the thing as it approached. The main defining feature of the baby doll spider was that it was in fact made of what looked like baby dolls. Not just dolls though. Mannequins, cosmetic practice heads. It seemed like all of the different objects were held together by some magic stickiness. I disagree with calling it a spider too. It had 4 legs and 2 arms. It was shaped more like a centaur. Another odd detail was that each body part was made up of that specific body part. Where the head should be, there was a massive mannequin, doll, and other forms of heads that were just crammed together. Same rule follows for the legs, arms, torso, and so on. "Mark, what the hell is that thing?" "I don't know." Usually if you see a doll or something moving around, that's a possession, but this is something new entirely. That lady you were talking to better have a good idea. The abomination was now closing in and had reached on the outermost sheds that dotted the chosen headquarters, and began tearing it to pieces. I don't think guns are gonna work on this thing. I bet it doesn't have internal organs that a bullet could damage, and I doubt it would respond to nat rounds since it doesn't look Native American. We're going to need to use stuff that will break it, Mark said as he grabbed a spear from a nearby cultist and slung it at least 40 yards to hit the thing in the torso. What the fuck? Mark can throw spears now? Even though it was a solid hit, the monster didn't reel back at all. It just looked in our direction and let out another screech before charging us at full tilt. It was at this point that I realized that the beast was not colored red anywhere on its body. All of the deep red I had seen was just blood that was caked onto the baby doll centaur. Damn it. Doll spider does sound better. As it got closer, Mark yelled, "Get its attention, I got an idea." I nodded and pulled out my .45 pistol knowing that it wouldn't kill it, but I could at least distract it. I now realize that I'm actually starting to trust Mark with my life, something I haven't done in a very long time. I started hitting center mass as the creature neared the 10 yards from Mark. He now stopped and turned towards me. Mark took advantage of this brief pause and sprinted at the creature. I was confused by this until I saw the round thing in his hand. Grenade. I kept firing and Mark slid under the belly of the beast and plunged his head in between the parts that made up the creature's torso, then continuing his slide out from the other side. As he got back to his feet, he yelled "cover" and dove behind a nearby Cadillac. All the creature had time to do was to start to look over in Mark's direction before it was obliterated by a teeth-rattling explosion. Hundreds of body parts rained down everywhere. That may have been the most badass thing I had ever seen. It's really a good thing that Mark started carrying grenades with him everywhere ever since the tall man incident. Cheering began erupting from all around the compound, but the celebration was short-lived. As I jogged over to check on Mark, I noticed that all the body parts were still moving. Not only that, but they were all moving towards the same central point. The yells of joy started dying down as more people began to realize that the thing was just putting itself back together. Just as Mark started to grab for another grenade concealed somewhere on his body, I heard the familiar voice of Sonya screaming my name. "Cole, take this. The woman that lived in the trees said you would know what to do with it." With that, she tossed me what looked like an oversized minnow catching net. That didn't make sense. There's no way in hell that this thing would be afraid of a net like the pels were, even if it was bigger. All my doubts melted away when I caught the net though. Sonya was right. I knew exactly what to do. A wave of something came over me when my fingers made contact with the net. It was like an absolute certainty of something, but I wasn't sure what exactly I was certain of. I looked down at the net and realized that where the weights were on a normal minnow net, this one medium-sized rocks. On these rocks were symbols or runes of some sort that I didn't recognize. They would have been hard to see on the rocks if they weren't glowing a bright blue color. Mark looked at me with a stare of confusion, then snapped back to reality and commanded, "Get your ass in gear and use that thing." I bolted in the direction of the now half-formed doll spider and slung the net over the wriggling mass of body parts. Nothing happened. The body parts kept moving into place and the net didn't seem to phase the thing. "Well shit," I could hear Mark say to himself from behind me. Then it hit me. It was like I remembered something I had never even learned. Before I knew what I was doing, the word "Rakulu Cha" escaped from my mouth. Immediately, all of the once blue runes changed into a deep red and smoke started rising from the net. The beast managed to get one more half of a screech in before it, well, I guess it just kind of stopped existing. While the cheering started to erupt again amongst the cultists, I immediately approached Sonya. Something she had said when she first approached me was hanging heavily on my mind. "So, do you mind explaining why you called her the lady who lived in the trees and not the lady who lives in the trees?" I said with more force than was probably necessary. "Look, Cole, I know what you need to know." She came to me and explained everything. "Yes, it's our fault that some of these beasts exist, but the shapeshifter needs to be dealt with now, and you are ready to take on that task." She came to me. "Hector doesn't even know, and she was certain that you would be able to fix this. Please, just listen." The somber tone of the woman's voice told me that my suspicions were true. The lady in the tree hadn't been hiding or avoiding me this whole time, and that was really hard to swallow. This was the beginning of a path to a dark place that I hadn't visited in years. I just hoped that Mark was willing to come with me. There's more to this story, but this entry is getting too long, so I'm going to cut it off here and post the rest of the story at a later date. Until then, Cole, signing off. So where did I leave off? Yeah, that's right. I just found out the one person on this godforsaken plot of land that I had considered to be on my side before Mark showed up is dead. That's right, folks. The lady in the tree wasn't mad at me, she wasn't ignoring me. She had been deceased for almost a year now. She's the one who really provided me with the means to survive over the past 3 years. She gave me a gun with magic bullets. She gave me hearing and an ear that had been destroyed. She gave me antidotes, alcohol. I'm pretty sure she even did my laundry once. I also can't help but think that she has something to do with the fact that the spirit preacher couldn't possess me. The most important thing she gave me, though, was her trust. Based on the few times she had directly communicated with me through letters, she had always alluded to the fact that I was supposed to be the one to help cleanse this land of the supposed darkness. Like I was the chosen one or some shit. Whether I'm actually special or not, though, she trusted me absolutely, and I failed. In her mind, I was battling these monsters and scaring them away from here. I was the hero she had been waiting on, for she couldn't find the creatures directly due to some sort of oath. In reality, all I've done for the past 3 years was dig around and get lucky. I've never gone out looking to solve the monster problems around here. Even when I set the trap for Camo, that was purely selfish and reasoning. I was just annoyed by his constant attempts at trapping me. I didn't do it for the greater good of the land. Looking at my own life, I've really never done much to serve anyone else but myself. Even the stuff I did after my dad was killed, I wasn't avenging him. I was getting revenge for me. I don't know why she ever decided that I was the one that would make things right. What instincts had told her that I was the man that would finally change something? I really wish she had never decided on me in the first place, because that fact alone is why as I typed this in my hospital bed, my throat is hurting and my lip is trembling. Actually, that might be the hospital food's fault. Not really sure at this point. Enough sad monologuing, time to get back to what happened. Sonia had some explaining to do, and I fully expected to get every ounce of useful intel from her. First question I needed to answer was what the hell happened to the lady in the tree. Sonia, what happened to her? She looked at the ground. It was obvious that she was dreading having to explain this to me. She snuck into what was left of my shelter in the middle of the night after Skinny attacked the Ponderosa. She told me. At this, Mark, who seemed to materialize from nowhere, cut her off. Look, I understand you want to get right to the part where the tree lady died, but first there's some other questions that need answers. Why did Skinny attack in the first place? Do you know where he came from? Do you know how to stop him? I turned to argue with Mark because I was the one who wanted to get to the part where she died, but unfortunately, Mark was right. Yeah, as much as I want to hear about what became of the lady in the tree, we need to start from the beginning. Now, what was that about you saying that some of these monsters popping up were your fault? I guess Mark hadn't heard that part of the previous conversation, because now he looked at me with a surprised etch into his face. Sonia was even slower to answer this time. Well, Cole, it wasn't my fault per se. You know how stubborn and persistent Hector can be, right? I didn't really like where this was going, but I had a pretty good idea. Yeah, I mean, he tried to kill me, 6 times, I think? Without thinking, Sonia replied, 9, but that's not what's important. What is important is that Hector has been trying to summon Cthulhu for years now, but in the last year, he's finally started having progress, sorta. Mark chimed in. What exactly does this progress consist of? The young cultist paused for a moment. Deep, I thought. Well, that attempts at summoning rituals started working, just not as we planned. Things were coming through the portals we created. The things weren't what we meant to summon, though. So far, we have summoned a 15-foot tall cloaked tentacle man that has been kidnapping our brothers and sisters on a regular basis until recently. The baby doll monster you both just saw and spirit that keeps creating minor inconveniences like broken plates and shoelaces being stolen from the respective shoes. But this last thing we summoned, and by far the most vicious, was the shapeshifter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so let me get this straight. You people are responsible for the tall man, the ghost preacher bitch, that baby doll abomination, and Skinny? Was there ever a point where you thought, damn, these rituals aren't really helping us very much. Maybe we should stop? Sonia shrugged as she looked at me. This is Hector we are talking about. She had a point. Hector doesn't know when to quit. Mark decided to pipe up again. And what finally happened to convince you that these rituals were a bad idea? When the shapeshifter killed half of us and then only stopped after saying that he was going to take a nap and come back for the rest of us later. That's a pretty solid reason, I said after considering what she said. So was it during Skinny's nap that the lady in the tree came to talk to you? I asked. Yeah, it was a few hours after the attack. The community was absolute chaos while Hector tried to calm everyone down. I was in my shed trying to figure out what I absolutely needed to take with me when I fled. That's when I hear a woman whisper hey to me. It was her. Immediately, I knew she wasn't one of us because, well, she doesn't wear much in the way of clothes and we are very strict about our dress code here. What did she want? This time, Sonia took a deep breath and closed her eyes before answering. She said that she had a way to save us from the shapeshifter, but she had a message and a few things that she needed to leave with me. After telling me this, she went back outside for a moment, and when she came back, she was carrying 3 large nets. She explained that the nets were for the man that lived up the hill, you, and that I was to give them to you as soon as possible. She also says she had thought of a way to keep the shapeshifter from attacking anyone again until you had a chance to deal with him. This revelation puzzled me. I knew for a fact that the lady in the tree couldn't directly attack or harm any creature as part of an oath. Mark stayed silent, deep in thought. I, on the other hand, kept on pressing Sonia for answers. So why the fuck didn't you tell me any of this sooner? This information would have been, I don't know, like a year ago. Sonia flinched as I finished my sentence. Honestly, Cole, I was just scared that if you saw me, you would kick the shit out of me. I guess I can't blame her for that one. I did kick the shit out of Hector right in front of her a couple of years ago. Okay. Did she tell you how she planned on doing this? She never got the chance to. Before she could explain any further, we heard screaming along with the sound of ripping metal outside. We rushed out to see a 9-foot-tall Ronald McDonald ripping someone in half while laughing like a madman. The Native American woman looked at me one last time and said, "Make sure to tell Cole that he alone can send these beasts back to using those nets. He may not know yet, but he will know what to do when the time comes. The elder spirits will guide and protect them." With that, the Indian woman took off towards the shapeshifter, which was now a giant werewolf. As she got closer, she started screaming some words I didn't understand. She also started glowing blue, which was odd. She finally got the shape. Just call him Skinny, it's catchier. Sonia seemed kind of annoyed that I interrupted her, but she continued all the same. She's got Skinny's attention when she stopped 5 feet in front of him. She was lit up like a blue glow stick at this point. She had stopped chanting at this point and was just standing in front of Skinny trying to catch her breath when Skinny said, "Well, aren't you different? I never killed a glowing one before," and proceeded to casually swipe at her with a clawed hand. Indian woman didn't flinch, but when the first claw made contact with her, there was a deafening boom, accompanied by an explosion of what looked like red mist. "Skinny can vaporize people?" I blurted, now a little more wary of my plans to attack the entity. Sonia was quick to set me straight though. No. She did something to herself with those incantations. Before that point, all Skinny had done was shred people into smaller portions of people. Mark muttered in response. Probably some curse that she set on herself as a trap so that when Skinny attacked her, it would trigger. This would bypass her rule of not being able to cause direct harm to other creatures since in a way, Skinny cursed himself by attacking her out of his own will. Did anything change about Skinny's behavior after the lady in the tree, Mark slid his thumb across his throat in a slicing motion. As he finished, he glanced over at me with what looked like pity in his eyes. "Yes, what's your name?" His look of pity quickly turned into a look of annoyance. "Mark. the expert said with a growl. Yes, Mark. His behavior did change. See, after the Indian woman disappeared, it only took a few seconds for Skinny to regain his composure. He almost immediately started laughing, then said, "What the hell was that? A suicide bomber attempt? Pathetic." However, as he lunged to grab yet another one of my sisters, he fell to the ground, writhing in agony. He got up and tried again and again, but each time he attempted to attack someone, he was met with a paralyzing pain. So the curse makes it so that Skinny can't hurt anyone? I asked, apprehensively, because 6 months ago, Skinny smacked the dog shit out of me and I almost died. Not quite. See, the curse has one catch. We found that out when Martin, Cthulhu bless his soul, tried to take advantage of his inability to attack and launched an assault of his own. But when his baseball bat made contact with the creature, he was immediately struck down by a clawed hand. I slapped my palm against my forehead. Ah, that makes sense. So, he can only attack if you attack first. That's why he tries to get us pissed at him. He made it seem like he was trying to lure us outside to disguise the fact that he was actually luring us into attacking him. Both Sonia and Mark looked at me somewhat startled for a moment before Mark spoke up. Cole, pardon me, but I'm honestly only used to you saying stupid shit, but I think you're actually right this time. I started to argue, but quickly realized he was right. Fuck you, Mark. So do I kill or banish Skinny by tossing one of those nets on him and yelling whatever magic words come into my head? Wait, how the actual fuck did I know what magic words to use? Sonia answered me with, "Yeah, I don't really understand that either, but let's just roll with it." Just then I heard Mark say, "What the fuck?" from right behind me. This was odd since Mark had been standing in front of me for a few minutes now. I turned around and sure enough, there was a second Mark behind me. This meant either Skinny had just walked up pretending to be Mark, or even worse, he had been talking to us that whole time and now knew everything that we knew. Sonia and I both backed away from the Marks as they stared at each other in confusion, and then back at me. The Mark on the left yelled, "Throw the net on it, now is your chance to end him." The other fired back, "No, he's trying to trick you, throw it on him, fast." After a moment of thought, I said, "Okay, so I think I have a way to figure this out. Whichever one of you is a real Mark just has to punch the other Mark to prove you can attack first." Both Marks shouted, "But then he'll kill me." At this, Sonia whispered in my ear, "Damn, he's good." But I already knew what my next move was. "Sonia, give me one of those nets." As she handed me one of the nets that was laying on the ground next to her, I started walking towards the Marks until I was right in front of them. A wicked grin spread across my face as I said, "Alright, here's a question not only the real Mark would know the answer to. How did they get the tall man to run away?" The Mark on the left quickly responded, You cut off a tentacle, but couldn't Skinny have seen that?" I now looked at Mark on the right to see how he planned to respond to the situation. All he did was squint his eyes at me and sigh, then, in a defeated tone, say, "You took off your clothes and ran at him naked until he fled." Satisfied by his answer, I slung the net over the top of the leftmost Mark's head and yelled the new magic words, "Eklaha Cherika." Not really sure why the magic words that came out of my mouth were different from the ones that came out when I got rid of the baby doll monster, but like Sonia said, I guess we just roll with it. As the runes that were carved into the rocks that outlined the net started to glow red, and Skinny was swallowed by the smoke, I heard him utter, "No fucking way," in a deep voice. Then as the smoke that swallowed him was blown away by the breeze, he was gone. Pretty anticlimactic, right? I was honestly kinda hoping for some badass battle where we fought to the death and I got to stab him with a magic spear that was like a final gift from the lady in the tree or something while saying something cool. But in the end, Skinny was defeated by an immature inside joke. That's it. I mean, yeah, the tall man is still out there somewhere, but Skinny is done. The lady in the tree got her wish. That's all I really could hope to accomplish. Mark was pretty pissed off at me for putting his life on the line and risking sending him to another dimension on the basis of him remembering an inside joke. In response to his anger, I just told him that I had faith in him, and in the end, that's all that mattered. All he said in return was, "Fuck you, I need a beer." I didn't tell him how I really figured out who was the real, when they both said, "But then he'll kill me," in unison. See, the new Mark that had just walked up shouldn't have known the rules of the curse, since he hadn't been there to hear about them. All I can figure is that Skinny probably had been listening in disguise as a cultist and decided to enter the conversation and stop us before we came up with the plan to kill him. I really just wanted Mark to believe that I was dumb enough to put his life on the line for something that Skinny could have easily heard, had he been eavesdropping at the right time. Serves him right for basically calling me a dumbass earlier. After Skinny was dealt with, Mark and I shared an uncomfortable couple of goodbyes with the cultists, most of whom hadn't even noticed what had happened, including Hector, much less appreciated the fact that we just got rid of the single most vile creature that had ever inhabited this land. But I was okay with that. The fact that the Lady in the Tree's killer was gone for good was enough for me. Some of you are probably asking, wait, if that's all that happened, then why were they both in the hospital? Well, that actually happened when the headquarters of the monster hunting organization that Mark works for summoned both of us to be interrogated about the events that led to the destruction of Skinny, which they knew to be an extremely high-level threat. After all the paperwork and questioning was over with, Mark offered to take me out for a drink. I accepted. Long story short, don't drink and drive, kids. They even took up our electronics for the first week we were in here. Claimed it was so they could scan them, but I knew it was just punishment for damaging a company armored SUV. Anyways, that's pretty much it for now. I'll try to keep posting, but now that Skinny is gone, the land seems a lot more relaxed. Hope y'all enjoyed the tale of how I finally killed Skinny. This is Cole, signing off.
In this little shop of horrors, that's how we get down. Yeah, enter, the project's on the prairie, scary. Greet you at the gate with Bloody Marys. Blood, a rail full of blood. Back to the cemetery, get more blood. Standing on the grave, drinking blood, smoking bones. We seen a crew of ghouls running by with stolen tombstones. With Hell's Angels on the chase, they lust to bust a black skull. Want you embrace, they tie you up in chains and they stomp on your face. They go to purgatory and they beat the fucking case. I look around, mad bodies being buried in the